Before Brad Pitt became one of the most recognizable faces in Hollywood, before the Oscars, the red carpets, and the global headlines, there was a young man from Missouri with a dream, a disarming smile, and a face the camera couldn't look away from. At 25, Pitt was still years away from the superstardom that Thelma and Louise would catapult him into, but these early portraits capture something magical, the quiet confidence, raw charisma, and heart-melting charm that hinted he was destined for greatness. These three portraits of a 25-year-old Brad Pitt aren't just photographs, they're time capsules. They capture the moment before Brad Pitt became Brad Pitt. Let's take a closer look at each one, and the story behind the young man who would become a Hollywood legend. Portrait number 1. The Missouri Dreamer, before the fame, before the frenzy. The first portrait shows Pitt in a simple white t-shirt, the kind of shot that feels unguarded and timeless. His hair, a tousled mix of sun-kissed blonde and soft brown, falls naturally over his forehead. There's no stylist, no Hollywood polish, just the boy next door charm that would later make him a household name. At this point, Brad was living in Los Angeles, trying to make ends meet while chasing acting gigs. He had moved from Springfield, Missouri, where he'd studied journalism at the University of Missouri before deciding to take a leap of faith and drive to California. With just $325 to his name and a Datsun that barely ran, Pitt began his climb, parking cars, delivering refrigerators, and even dressing up as a giant chicken for El Pollo Loco to pay the bills. In this portrait, you can still see that boyish hope. His eyes, deep, expressive blue, seem to hold both ambition and uncertainty. It's a face that doesn't yet know heartbreak, fame, or the pressures of stardom. There's no ego, no facade, just authenticity. What makes this photo particularly striking is how it mirrors the innocence of youth. Pitt's grin isn't rehearsed, it's warm, open, and genuine. There's an aura of optimism radiating from him, as if he knows something good is coming, even if he doesn't know when. Fans who've seen this early shot often remark that it feels like the calm before the storm. It's the portrait of a man standing on the edge of a life he couldn't yet imagine. Within a few short years, the same smile would grace magazine covers around the world. Portrait number 2. The budding rebel, between innocence and edge. The second portrait is a completely different energy, and perhaps the most captivating of the three. Shot in black and white, Pitt leans against a brick wall, his hair a little longer, his expression more brooding. His jawline, sharp even then, catches the light just right, while his gaze feels both intense and vulnerable. This is the Brad Pitt that casting directors were beginning to notice. By 1988 and 1989, he had landed guest roles on TV shows like Dallas, 21 Jump Street, and Growing Pains. He wasn't famous yet, but he was turning heads. Those who met him back then often described him as polite but focused, a man determined to prove himself through hard work rather than charm. In this photo, you can sense that determination. There's a flicker of something deeper in his eyes, a hint of rebellion, maybe even frustration with being underestimated. He was still being cast as the cute guy, or the boyfriend, but Pitt was already thinking bigger. The portrait feels cinematic, as if it belongs to a forgotten 1980s coming-of-age film. You can almost imagine him playing the misunderstood dreamer, the one who steals hearts without trying. The black and white palette adds to the timeless quality, reminding us of James Dean, Paul Newman, and other legends who came before him. It's easy to forget now, after decades of superstardom, that Brad Pitt once had to fight for recognition. This image captures that exact transition, from aspiring actor to undeniable presence. The innocence of his earlier years had started giving way to the beginnings of Hollywood allure. Even in stillness, Pitt projects motion, you can sense he's on the verge of something monumental. Portrait number 3. The heartthrob emerges, Hollywood's next leading man. The third portrait feels like prophecy fulfilled. Pitt, dressed in a leather jacket and faded jeans, sits casually on a stool, his hair slightly disheveled, his smile effortlessly magnetic. There's confidence now, not arrogance, but the kind that comes from finally feeling seen. By this point, Brad was 25 and on the brink of major opportunities. He had appeared in a few films and was auditioning for bigger roles. A year later, his unforgettable turn as the charming drifter J.D. in Thelma and Louise would transform him into Hollywood's newest obsession. This portrait seems to capture that energy just before the explosion of fame. He's relaxed, leaning forward slightly, as if inviting you into conversation. His expression is knowing, like someone aware of his potential but still grounded in his small-town roots. The lighting highlights his cheekbones and lips in a way that feels cinematic, hinting at the matinee idol he would soon become. Yet, there's still a softness there, a boyish innocence that fame would slowly erase. Fans often point to this photo as the moment Brad Pitt became Brad Pitt. It's not hard to see why. It's the perfect balance of humility, confidence, and undeniable beauty. He looks like a star who just doesn't know it yet. The man behind the smile. What's so endearing about these portraits is not just how handsome Pitt is, though, of course, that's impossible to ignore, but how real he looks. These aren't the airbrushed, high glamour images that would define his later career. These are intimate, human glimpses into a man before the world claimed him. Brad Pitt at 25 was still finding himself. He was still auditioning for small roles, still living with roommates, still eating fast food between casting calls. But what shines through in these portraits is a self-assuredness, an unspoken belief that he belongs somewhere bigger. It's the same confidence that would carry him through decades of fame, heartbreak, and reinvention. From Legends of the Fall to Fight Club, from Mr. and Mrs. Smith to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Pitt's career has always been about duality, the beautiful man who never wanted to be just that. Looking back at these early portraits now, there's a sweetness in knowing how his story unfolds. The young man smiling shyly into the camera couldn't have known he'd one day win an Oscar, become a producer shaping Hollywood, and be regarded as one of the greatest movie stars of his generation. Why these photos still matter. In an age of filters, retouching, and social media curation, these photos remind us what raw star power looks like. Brad Pitt didn't need a stylist or a team of lighting experts to look magnetic. His natural presence, that mix of Midwestern warmth and movie star mystique, was already there. These portraits have become more than just nostalgic memorabilia, they're artifacts of a time when Hollywood still discovered stars the old-fashioned way, by chance, by charm, and by undeniable talent. Every wrinkle, every smile line, every tousled strand of hair in these photos tells a story, of a young man who dared to dream beyond Springfield, who believed that the camera could be a ticket to something more. From then to now, the timeless appeal of Brad Pitt. Decades later, that 25-year-old dreamer still lives somewhere inside the man we see today. Even with global fame, blockbuster hits, and a filmography most actors can only envy, Pitt's charm has always felt grounded. That's perhaps why fans continue to adore him, not just for his looks, but for his humanity. You can see it in interviews, in how he laughs easily, or talks about art, architecture, or his kids with quiet pride. The same warmth that radiated from those early portraits still flickers behind his eyes today, older, wiser, but no less captivating. At 25, Brad Pitt was on the cusp of stardom. At 60, he remains one of Hollywood's most enduring figures. And those three adorable portraits, they're proof that greatness often announces itself long before the world is ready to listen.